We're at our last day of the Ohio Education Technology Conference. I'm John Conley, once again, from the Ohio Board of Regents, the Assistant Deputy Chancellor for Educational Technology and the Chair of the eTech Ohio Commission. We've got a pretty action-packed day today. This is our Higher Ed Day, and it's Hump Day. How about that? I got a quick question. How many folks in the room attended an Ohio university? Could you raise your hand? All right. I'm a Buckeye, so that's good. So we're going to talk a lot. Today is about higher education. The whole subject matter day is education. We've got two great national speakers. I don't think any conference in the country has got some of the talent that we've brought to you over the last 3 days, and I hope you've gotten as much out of this as you can. I wanted to talk just briefly, and then I'm going to get Rebecca Watts from our office up here to introduce our first speaker. We're going to be talking this afternoon. I think there's some demos going on for our Ohio Means Success website that we stood up with some college access dollars that basically helps students, parents, and even educators, direct kids to find out what their pathway is, what college or university here in Ohio that they'd like to attend, and how to get there. So I encourage all of you. I actually went to one of my daughter's sophomore orientation a week ago, and they were talking about this site. And I encourage all of you to visit it. We just launched it late last year, and we've got a lot of good, positive feedback from the community. So please, if you get a chance, I think there will be some demos over in the Education Pavilion. And, it's neat to see that Education Pavilion is not just ODE, it's the Board of Regents, it's the Ohio Technology Consortium, it's our iLearn Ohio folks. I mean, it's all of us working together in this P20 environment, which we've really worked hard to create. And as some of you know, or most of you may know, my new office is actually at the Ohio Department of Education. The Regents and ODE are working, kind of simultaneously together to leverage each other as we work through this P20 initiative for kids in Ohio. And just one other thing I wanted to mention this morning was, we've really, for the last 20-some months, I've really spent a lot of time with our group at the consortium level. We took all of our consortiums, that would be the librarians who you met Gwen Evans yesterday, our supercomputer center here in Ohio, our backbone, our network backbone, and we've put them all into this Ohio Technology Consortium because they're so much more valuable together, and it makes Ohio so much more viable and economically viable in tough times, and it makes it more attractive. We've got so much outreach going with our industries here in Ohio, and it's an exciting thing. We just launched recently, this past December, the upgrade of our backbone, and some of you may not know that the Ohio Academic Resource Network provides connectivity as the backbone to all of state and local government, K-12, higher education, and to some university hospitals that are attached to, obviously to universities. But we took that backbone and we upgraded it from a 10 gigabit connection, which is pretty good. It's about the standard in the US, and we upgraded it to 100 gigabits. So we're number one in the country. We're really creating an environment where researchers and corporations can work together to come out with new innovative products, working with our researchers. One example, Procter & Gamble, we work with at the Supercomputer Center, they worked on an endemic grant from the Department of Commerce on how to basically design and simulate the design of a water bottle. And you'd be amazed that what they were able to do, and now they have the ability to transmit all that simulation data back and forth across the web. And it not only makes Procter & Gamble happy because it lowers their cost, but it makes that company in Medina much more competitive on a worldwide market. And that's where we win. If we can we are the state of the Wright brothers. We are the state of John Glenn. We are the state of Neil Armstrong. We've got to get back into that role. So that's my plug for the Ohio Technology Consortium. So I want to thank the Capital University Electronic Music Ensemble for their performance this morning. Thank you very much. Also want to thank the Lancaster High School. I know they're doing a documentary of the entire conference, and hopefully we'll all be able to see that. We'll push that out to the eTech website so all of you can see what's happened over the last 3 days and go back and show your colleagues. The next thing I want to do is introduce my colleague at the Ohio Board of Regents, Rebecca Watts. Rebecca is going to introduce our keynote. She is the Associate Vice Chancellor for P20 initiatives at the Ohio Board of Regents, overseeing college access and readiness initiatives, dual enrollment, educator preparation programs, and all of our Race to the Top initiatives. So please welcome Rebecca Watts. Thank you.
Good morning. As John said, I work in academic affairs at the Board of Regents, and a key focus of my work is on the continuum. So a lot of folks here are in K-12. A lot of folks here are in higher ed. Third grade teachers talk to fourth grade teachers all the time, and fourth to fifth and fifth to sixth. But through the years, there has been sort of a divide where high school teachers, high school faculty, and post-secondary faculty haven't made those kind of really strong connections. And that's a key focus of my work here, and that's why I'm so grateful to the conference organizers and the folks that are in the seats today. You took your time, you took your energy, you took your focus away from your day-to-day to come together, and I think every little step that we can take to do things that bridge those sometimes what we've had as gaps between K-12 and post-secondary benefits our students, because as we all are lifelong learners, they are too, and so many times when you go to that next stage of education, there are surprises and shocks for students that shouldn't be there, and we can make sure that we're smoothing those transitions better by coming together and talking. And technology is really an important way that we can do that. So as I have a special opportunity this morning, I am really honored to be able to introduce someone who has done groundbreaking work in technology and education, and marrying those two worlds for the benefit of students. And that's what we're all here for, is to benefit students. But like all good opportunities, there are challenges. So my opportunity this morning comes with this challenge. How do you appropriately introduce somebody who designed autonomous helicopters and deep learning neural networks? I don't have a very good answer for that question. So my plan is to get out of the way so you can hear from him. A computer science faculty member at Stanford University, Andrew Ng serves as the director of Stanford Artificial Intelligence Lab, the main AI research organization at Stanford. In 2011, he led the development of Stanford University's main MOOC platform and also taught an online machine learning class that was offered to more than 100,000 students, leading to the founding of Coursera. Coursera partners with top universities to offer open access online courses. As a co-founder of Coursera, Andrew's goal is to give everyone in the world access to a high-quality, no-cost education. With 33 university partners, more than 200 courses, and more than 2 million students, I think Coursera is well on its way to reaching Andrew's goal. So without further ado, and to get out of the way so you can hear from him, please join me in welcoming Andrew Ng.
Thank you. So, I'm a Stanford professor and co-founder of Coursera. Most people today will never have access to a Stanford class, but we're changing that. Working with such great schools as Stanford, Caltech, Princeton, Ohio State University, Penn, and many others, we're taking courses from all of these great universities and putting them online, free for anyone to take. We're using technology to offer high-quality education at scale. Let me share with you my story. As a Stanford professor, I normally teach a 400-student Stanford class. About a year and a half ago, I put my class online, and it reached an audience of 100,000 students. To put that number in context, in order for me to reach a comparable size audience, I would otherwise have had to teach my normal Stanford class for 250 years. So who are the students? It was students like Akash, who wrote to say that coming from a small middle-class family in India, he would otherwise never have had access to a Stanford class. Or students like Jenny, a 39-year-old single mother of two, who had been wanting to go back to college and for whom the convenience of an online class allowed her to take the first step. Since launching the first few courses about a year and a half ago, we've now grown significantly and broadened to many courses across a range of disciplines. Let me show you some of our courses.
Welcome to Calculus. 50 million people are uninsured.
Models help us organize information. They help us make better predictions. They help us design more effective institutions and policies. Models, in short, just make us better thinkers.
And if we run this, we get unbelievable segregation.
So Bush imagined that in the future, you'd wear a camera right in the center of your head.
A love poem is a poem about another person.
Mills wants the student of sociology to develop the quality.
A hanging cable takes on the form of a hyperbolic cosine.
For each pixel in the image, set the red to 0. So let's see what that looks like.
And that vaccine allowed us to eliminate poliovirus.
Does Lufthansa serve breakfast in San Jose? Well, that sounds funny.
So this is which coin you pick, and this is the key possible.
0 from being passive, so passive becomes a best response.
So in large-scale machine learning, we went to come up with computational reasoning. And since announcing, I guess, Coursera around April last year, we've announced partnerships with 33 universities, and today we have over 200 courses on the website, and we reached our first 1 million users faster than did Facebook, and it took us another 4 months after that to double to 2 million users, and today we're actually at 2.5 million students. I should say this rapid growth isn't because I think we're anything special. Rather, I think it just speaks to a societal need for affordable, high-quality education. And by any of these metrics, we're today by far the largest MOOC or massive open online courses platform in the world. So why do so many students want to take our courses? I think it is that first and foremost, they are real courses. The course begins on a certain day. It runs for a fixed period of time, so 10 weeks in the case of my class. That figure up there is a plot of the web traffic as my class progress, with the vertical axis being the number of users on the site. And those peaks, those regular heartbeats that you see, those correspond to homework deadlines. Predictably, the 24 hours before homework is due, web traffic spikes, proving procrastination is a global phenomenon. And finally, if a student completes the class, does the homeworks, and meets our grading bar, they also receive a certificate or similar from us that they can put in their resume and use to find a better job. Let me show you what our courses look like. Like most others, we use video-based instruction, and so this is what one of our videos may look like.
Game, and generally we'll start with some set of players as an accepted starting point.
Let's point out the
1.5x
accelerated playback.
Actions that each player can take. Is passive and active enough of a distinction in order to really capture the details of what's going on in a predator-prey relationship? Well, probably not.
As well as you saw English captioning, which is useful for the students that are less fluent in English, as well as crowdsourced foreign language captioning written by volunteer students. And beyond the basic video format, which I guess is what you just saw, our instructors have been pioneering many different lecture formats, ranging from video shot out in the field, to interviews, to Google Hangouts with students, to a fun example on the bottom right. A UPenn professor was teaching a class on gamification, and perhaps appropriately, he decided to start off his lectures by teaching using his World of Warcraft character. So when you sign up for the UPenn gamification class, in lecture 1, you see the professor appear in his persona as a weird World of Warcraft monster, and that monster starts teaching you about computer games. And the other reason we use video is it allows us to encourage instructors to take hour-long lectures and break them down into bite-sized pieces. So in addition to posting the core material, our instructors can also post optional prerequisite and optional advanced material. This allows students to navigate through the content in their own order and at their own pace, moving us away, I think, from the one-size-fits-all model of education. And finally, to those of you that are instructors, it turns out these online videos are relatively easy to create. This was me shooting videos for my machine learning class in my smart recording studio. So if you shoot one of these videos, you can get up, and if on a Sunday morning you feel like teaching a video, I would get up, brush my hair, walk into the studio and just shoot a 10-minute video and have that posted on the web. Beyond the videos, though, our courses also have serious homeworks and assessments. When we as educators talk about assessments, we often think about the purpose of evaluating student performance or assessing student performance. But I think the far more important purpose of homeworks is that it is often what actually causes learning to take place in the first place. There are many pedagogical studies, such as this one, which show that it is the process of being tested on the material, that is retrieval practice, the rightmost bar in this case, that's what causes long-term retention to take place. And in this example, retrieval practice results in significantly better student learning than just studying or even repeated study. Because of this, we've built into our online courses pervasive opportunities for the students to practice with the material. Let me show you an example of what we call an in-video quiz. This is really a feature invented by my co-founder, Coursera, Daphne Collar. But this is what it looks like.
Prospect theory, hyperbolic discounting, status quo bias, base rate bias, they're all well documented. So they're all well documented deviations from rational behavior.
So as a student, you'd be watching a video, and right in the middle, the video pauses, and you get the question, you get to attempt it. Here, the student doesn't get it right the first time, so the student edits the answer and submits again, and they get it right. See an optional explanation before the class moves on. So that's the student experience. And I want to contrast this with my experience teaching a large Stanford class. In my Stanford class, when I ask a question in my classroom, usually about half the students are still madly scribbling away, trying to write down the last thing I said. In my class, usually about 10% of my students are zoned out on Facebook. And invariably, there's always that smarty pants in the first row that shouts out the answer. Then I feel really good that at least someone answered my question, and the class moves on with only one student having gotten to engage with the question. In contrast, on the website, the video pauses and a question pops up, and every student gets to attempt an answer. Every student gets feedback on whether or not they're understanding the material. So I think it's ironic that a website can actually be more interactive than a large lecture class. Beyond the in-video quizzes, our classes also have usually have more serious weekly homeworks, and this includes the ubiquitous multiple choice, to short answer questions, to math expression checking, where in the example here, we asked the student to take the mathematical derivative of sine x over x, and our software understands all of the mathematically equivalent and correct ways of writing out that math expression. Working with Alex Aiken, Stanford professor, we've been developing software for automatic math theorem proving as well. So those of you that are math teachers will know this, but I've been grading math homeworks for a long time. And year after year, students will submit homeworks where if you ask them to do a derivation, they'll have one line of the derivation, and then another line, and then another line. And then there's this magical and therefore step, and the final answer appears. So we've been developing software that asks students to show their work and justify every step of the derivation, and if they go off track or if they do a step that isn't quite justified, we can tell them right away so that they can fix it or pursue a different route right in the middle of the homework. And finally, we can grade arbitrary types of structured data. So a spreadsheet is an example of a piece of structured data. So you can have your students, say, build a financial model in a spreadsheet and upload that to the website to be graded, or build circuit models or chemical models or other engineering models. And we have extensive auto-grading of computer programs as well. Let me show you one example of how we automatically grade computer programs. In this programming exercise, the student is asked to do a color correction homework. So they're writing computer program right into the web browser. The student hits run and it's not quite correct. Statue of Liberty is looking a little green. So the student edits his answer, hits submit again, and it says output correct at the bottom. So that's the level of interactivity of some of our courses. One of the nice things about online learning is that you can give students multiple opportunities to succeed. Here's what I mean. In a normal Stanford class, if a student does a quiz and if they submit the homework and they don't get it quite right, what can you do? You know, the student gets back their graded homework, it says 60 out of 100, and the class moves on. And the reason we do things like this on our campuses is because, for the most part, we just don't have the resources to grade a student's homework multiple times. The TAs are busy, the professors are busy, you are busy, and students submit their work, they get back the graded work, they put it in a folder, and the class moves on. In contrast, on the website, when you have auto-grading, we can give a student multiple opportunities to attempt a piece of work and give a student multiple opportunities to succeed. What we do is not actually just have a student come back and try exactly the same quiz multiple times. What we do is develop tools for instructors to create randomized quizzes, a little bit like the DMV written exam, where, you know, if you or your children take the DMV written exam the first time and they don't get it quite right, they go back the next day and you can try over, you know, study some more, go back the next day, you can try over and over until you succeed. So in this example, the instructor has written a question and provided 4 correct and 4 incorrect options. And if a student takes this quiz, the first time they do it, they may be shown a couple correct and a couple incorrect options. If they don't get it quite right, they can try again the next day, try again the next day until they get it. I think that education should be about helping students to succeed. It shouldn't be about telling some students, you're a B student, you know, you're a C student, and that kid over there is an A student. And with mastery learning, we can give students multiple opportunities to attempt a piece of work until they get a piece right and have a firm foundation to build on before moving on to the next piece. In fact, I think it was Sal Khan who once said something very profound, which is that in today's education system, what is held constant is the amount of time you spend on a piece of material, say 10 weeks, and what is variable is the degree to which a student gets it. Some students get it and some don't, and the class moves on. Instead, I think it should be the other way around, and I think what should be held constant is that every student should get it, every student should succeed, and what can be variable is the amount of time or the number of attempts that a student needs to spend on a piece of material before they get it. And with mastery learning on the website, we can do that today. So far, I've been talking only about auto-graded homeworks, but not everything can be auto-graded. And our data shows that with mastery learning, this results in student improvements as well. If a student have a firm foundation to build on the next homework, they actually do better as well. Right. So, so far I've been talking about auto-graded homeworks, but not everything can be auto-graded. I actually learned something interesting a few months ago, which is about a year ago, which is that if you walk into a poetry professor's office, and if you show the poetry professor your shiny new multiple choice auto-grading technology, and if you try to convince the poetry professor to teach a poetry class using multiple choice, he will invite you to exit his office. I think education at all levels is very broad, and we were committed to developing technology to enable a broad range of courses from a broad range of disciplines to be offered. And we wanted to be able to offer essay questions. They have students write a 300-word critical thinking essay about a piece of poetry or about a piece of US history. But you can't have one professor grade 100,000 essays. So what we did instead was develop a peer grading system to enable students to grade each other's work. Peer grading is an idea that has been well studied in the education literature, and in small classrooms of, say, 50 students, it's been shown to give highly accurate grades. And in fact, if you set up the incentives right, you can have students grade their own work, and that's even more accurate and is pedagogically useful as well. What we did was we took the idea of peer grading, previously used only in small classrooms, and combined that with the computer science idea of crowdsourcing. And today we have run by far the largest peer-graded homeworks in the history of education. The way it works is as follows. As a student in one of these classes, you'll be asked to first do the work, say write a 300-word essay, or do a design problem and maybe hand draw a design and use your cell phone camera to take a picture of the design you drew and upload your hand-drawn picture to the website to be graded. Right? After you've done the work and submitted the work, you will then be shown an instructor-supplied grading rubric or instructor-supplied grading guideline that teaches you how to grade other students' work. You'd then be asked to demonstrate proficiency in grading. So you'd be asked to grade a few pieces of work that the instructor has also graded and show that you can assign grades similar to what the instructor had assigned. And finally, you'd then be asked to grade, say, 5 other students' pieces of work. And in exchange, you get feedback from 5 other students about your own work. Here's a screenshot of a prototype of an implementation of our peer grading pipeline in which a student hand drew a design and uploaded the hand-drawn design to the website to be graded. And we've run peer grading in about 30 classes so far. This was an analysis done by Mich Denier at Princeton University, who was able to show that peer grading gives fairly accurate grades. And I think in the 30 or so classes in which we've run this, we've been able to show broadly that peer grading gives reasonably accurate grades, and moreover is certainly giving very useful feedback to students about the quality of their work. So I think having a peer grading technology has really been key to enabling us to offer courses that span a broad range of disciplines, including the humanities, the social sciences, engineering, business, law, finance, nursing, medicine, and other areas. So, so far I've talked about the lectures and I've talked about the homeworks. From the student perspective, the third and final major component of the student experience is the community. So we know that students learn best not by studying in isolation, but by having other students to work with, but by having classmates to talk to. With our online courses, we serve a very diverse, non-traditional population. 80% of our students already have a college degree. One of the effects of this is that I think the old model where you go to school, where you go to college for 4 years, and then the next 40 years you coast on what you had learned in school. In today's rapidly changing world, that model just doesn't make sense anymore. And as working professionals, all of us, it's challenging to go back to school every Tuesday and Thursday to take more classes. But I think the convenience of an online class is bringing a lot of adults back into the education system. And this includes both adults that already have a college degree, as well as many adults that, for whatever reason, do not yet have a college degree. And I think we're helping to bring them back into our schools this way. We also serve a very worldwide diverse population. This is a map of the students taking the Princeton's Sociology 101 class. One of the nice things about having a class with 100,000 students is that it means no matter what time of day you are awake thinking about something, there will be someone in some time zone awake at the same time thinking about the same thing as you that can discuss it with you. So we developed an online discussion forum in which students can post questions and other students can answer their questions. Again, a professor can't answer 100,000 students' questions, and so we have to rely on students for the most part to answer each other's questions. The last time we measured it, when a student posts a question, the median response time, that is how long you have to wait before someone else answers your question, was 22 minutes. And frankly, a 22-minute response time, that's a far better level of service than I was ever able to offer to my students at Stanford. Beyond the online community of students answering each other's questions, we've been rolling out a community teaching assistant program in which we invite students from one offering of the class to be volunteer community teaching assistants for the next offering of the class to help answer questions and so on. And so this is starting to build a community that spans multiple offerings of the same class. Beyond these discussion forums in our classes, we've been piloting out live video chat so that students can come online and engage in live video chat with groups of students using our Google Hangout integration, as well as live text chat, so that if you're in a class and you see that there are 357 other students watching the same video as you at the same time, maybe you can have a discussion with them. So those are features we've piloted out in single classes, but we'll be rolling out more broadly across other classes as well. Beyond the online communities, we've been seeing that students have been coming together in physical study groups as well. And this is a picture we took recently of the San Francisco Human-Computer Interfaces Classes study group. And we've been finding study groups springing up all around the world with groups organized by language, by geography, even by lifestyle. Turns out one of our classes had a study group with all the mothers learning to program. So one of the nice things about teaching a massive open online class is the data that we can get from these classes. I guess my professional background is in artificial intelligence and data sciences, and one of the things that excites me is the data that these open online classes is giving us to enable us to learn more about education. So if you think about it, in a typical education study, if you have an idea on pedagogy, you might have an experiments group of 20 students and a control group of 20 students. If it's a really large study, maybe it's 200 and 200 students in your experiment and control groups. In contrast, when you're teaching a massive open online course, we can easily deliver an experiments group of 20,000 students and a control group of 20,000 students. And as many of you know, very often it is just having more data, having more students that will allow you to see trends that you just couldn't otherwise with smaller numbers of students. But it isn't just the number of students, it is also the detail of data, the amount of data per student that you can get. We log every mouse click. We log every homework submission, correct or incorrect. We know when a student did an instant replay on part of a video and which part they chose to fast forward over. We know when a student visits a discussion forum, which discussion forum threads they read. And this detail and magnitude of data is unprecedented in education, and I think it is giving us a new window into human learning. So let me give you a couple of examples of things we've been able to do. In my machine learning class, sometimes a student would submit a programming exercise and they get it incorrect. After a while, let's see, great. Sometimes they get it, that's funny. The central slide is different than the ones to the side. Oh well, because I'm going to use the ones to the side if that's okay. Let's see, slides aside. So sometimes the student would submit a homework and get it incorrect, and after a while it's still incorrect, and after a while they correct their misconception and get the answer right. What we would really like to know is what happened between the final incorrect submission and that correct submission. So what is it that allowed a student to correct their misconception? Let's see, I wonder, should I wait for the central screen to come back up? No? Okay, keep going, thank you. Sorry about that. So what John Huang, a postdoc at Stanford, did was he looked at discussion forum visits and looked at when students visited the discussion forum. And what he did was, for each thread in the discussion forum, he did a little calculation called a mutual information calculation, but he did a little calculation to identify the discussion forum threads that were most useful. In other words, which discussion forum thread gave the biggest boost to a student's chance of correcting their misconception. So we actually did this in my machine learning class and found that the most useful discussion forum thread for one of the homeworks was this one, which gave a 30% chance of, which gave a 30% boost to the student's chance of correcting their misconception. And when I, as the instructor, looked at this, I found that, lo and behold, this gave a very pithy clarification of what turned out to be a common point of confusion in the class. There was a definition of a matrix X that the way I had explained it was slightly ambiguous, and this did the perfect job clarifying a slightly ambiguous part of the homework. Seeing this enabled me to go back and correct the homework exercise to clarify that for the next offering. But you can also imagine that if I hadn't gone back to clarify this, that we could then automatically recommend this discussion forum post to other students as well. Let me share with you just one more example. So in my machine learning class, a funny thing happened to me. I assigned a programming exercise, and 2,000 students submitted the same wrong answer. This has never happened to me before. So the students were asked to generate a program where they output a pair of numbers, and that's a, wow. Yeah, okay, maybe we'll come back up. And on the plots on the side, that's a plot of all of the student submissions, and the big red cross on the upper left-hand corner, that big red cross is the 2,000 nearly identical incorrect submissions. So we looked at a small sample of these 2,000 submissions, looked at about 15 of them, and found that everyone in the sample we had looked at had taken 2 steps in a mathematical algorithm, and they had reversed the order of 2 steps. What this did is it enabled us to generate a custom error message so that when the 2001 student submitted the same wrong answer, we were able to show them a custom error message that says, consider the order in which you're doing these 2 steps. And this custom error message allows students to much more quickly correct their misconception and move on. So if you think about it, if in a normal Stanford class, if 2 out of 100 students had submitted the same wrong answer, you probably won't even notice. Instead, it's when 2,000 out of 100,000 students that submit the same wrong answer, that's what gives the instructor a strong signal that there is something to be looked at here. So I think it's ironic that in order to achieve personalization at the level of a custom error message that tells the student exactly what to look at, in order to achieve that level of personalization, what was needed was to teach a class with 100,000 students, because that's what gave us the data to make personalization possible. I think the data that we have is unprecedented in the history of education, and I would love to do to education what companies like Google, Amazon, Netflix, and Facebook have done to e-commerce. And I guess I personally think that education is a far better cause than e-commerce. Thank you. Benjamin Bloom wrote a seminal paper in the education literature called the 2 sigma problem. What he showed is that if you use standard lectures as your method of content delivery, then student performance will follow a Gaussian or a bell-shaped curve. And what that means is that half of your students will perform above some median level of performance, and half of your students will perform below some median level of performance, as denoted by the blue and black figures. If you implement mastery learning, allow a student to try a piece of work over and over until they succeed, until they have a firm foundation to build on before they move on to the next piece. With mastery learning, student performance shifts by 1 sigma or 1 standard deviation. And what that means is that now 84% of your students are performing above what was previously your median level of performance. If you can give each student an individual tutor, a personal tutor, then student performance shifts by 2 standard deviations or by 2 sigma. What that means is that now 98% of your students are performing above what was previously the median level of performance. So to those of you that are teachers, don't you think it would be nice if 98% of your students were above average? The reason Benjamin Bloom called this the 2 sigma problem is that we as a society simply do not have the resources to give each student an individual tutor. But I think we could certainly afford to give each student a computer, and with online learning we can certainly implement, could you put up the slide please? Thank you. With online learning we can certainly implement mastery learning, and with the personalization that the large amounts of data is giving us, and with further technical improvements, I hope that we can slowly push student performance out from 1 sigma towards 2 sigma over time. I've often been asked, so kind of finally, I've often been asked if anyone can go online now and take a Stanford class, or take a Princeton class. Why on earth would anyone still pay $200,000 for a Princeton degree? And I think the answer is that the real value of attending a great university isn't just the content. I think it's the interactions with other equally bright students and with the amazing professors of our various universities. To quote Plutarch, I think the mind is not a vessel that needs filling, but wood that needs igniting. And so what we're doing with most of our university partners is using these online courses to implement what's come to be called the flipped classroom, in which students are asked to watch the lecture content at home. And what this does is the classroom, instead of being used to deliver the content, to deliver the lectures to students, the classroom time can now be used for the much deeper student-professor and student-student interactions, which I think is the real value of having the students come to our campuses. There are many pedagogical studies, such as this one, which show that these more interactive modes of teaching result in much better student outcomes in student attendance, student engagement, student learning. And these are not 1 or 2% improvements. In student learning, it's like a 30% improvement. And so in my classroom at Stanford today, what I do is, I guess those of you that are teachers will know this, right? I've been teaching at Stanford for a decade, and year after year, I was walking into the same room, saying the same words to the same room, telling the same jokes. And after a decade, it got repetitive, and it really made me wonder if this was the best way for me to serve my students. Now, in my Stanford classroom that I teach using the flipped classroom, I ask the students to watch the lectures on the website. And the day before class, I look at the dashboard on the website. That's actually that's actually a screenshot from our website. Look at the dashboard on the website to see what students had gotten right, what students had gotten wrong. And I can then spend my classroom time doing just-in-time teaching because I know what students are confused about. And this actually changes from offering to offering of the class. And the rest of my classroom time is spent in small group problem solving, where I might talk for 1 or 2 minutes and then invite the students to work in a small group on problems with their best friends. And I guess this is, frankly, this is a much more interesting engaging experience for me personally as a teacher. But what's even more important, or really what is the most important, is that I think this is a much better experience for the students. And walking into a classroom to work with your best friends on problems is, I think, a better experience for students than walking into a classroom for me to lecture at them. So the last thing I want to share with you is what our current thinking has been on letting students take what they've learned from our courses and show what they know. Our classes have are real classes, and they're challenging classes. And when students complete our classes, I think it's important for them to be able to take what they learn and use it to find better jobs or to apply for college admissions or whatever the student wants to do. So for a long time, when a student completes these courses, we've been issuing these certificates or statements of accomplishment that are signed in my personal capacity. And we've been placing disclaimers of the sort, this is not a Stanford class, the student's identity is not verified. And the reason we had to do this was because for the initial sets of courses we've been offering, we don't really know who the students are when they come to our website. And so we've been printing certificates just using whatever name the student gave us, and we don't really know who these students are. But many students are already proudly using these certificates to find better jobs. I've been hearing from many of my students saying that, very often I get email from a student saying that I got a job offer, and moreover, when the employer was handing me the job offer, they told me to my face that it's because of this class you took on Coursera, that's why you're getting this job. So I've been hearing that quite a lot from students. Perhaps somewhat to our surprise, we've been finding that some universities have been starting to offer academic credit for our courses as well. This is a screenshot from the University of Helsinki website, in which they were sending students to take our free online courses, and they asked students to do a little more work, like write an essay, take a local exam or something, and based on that, the students were acquiring academic credit at the University of Helsinki that is good towards a degree at the University of Helsinki. And a number of various universities worldwide have been doing this. So we started to hear from students that they wanted better ways to show off their work, to show to others that they were the ones that did this work. And so more recently, we announced a product, a feature that we call the signature track, in which we, on our website, will verify the student's identity. So we ask the student to show us an ID, and every time the student submits a piece of work, we take a webcam picture or use a biometric. So it turns out that the way you type is very distinct. It's very difficult for anyone else to hit the keys on your keyboard at the same rhythm as you do. And so using a combination of a webcam, taking pictures of the webcam, and your typing rhythm, we verify the student's identity, and for every homework, we verify that it is indeed the student that is submitting their work. And based on this, we and some of the university partners will be issuing certificates that the university and us can stand behind a bit more, because now we know that you really were the one that submitted the work. So this is a signature track product that we launched, and soon we'll be printing, I think, large numbers of certificates that are backed really by the university and by us, because now we're more confident that the students submitted the work. I want to take a slight digression to say a little bit about company philosophy, I guess. Implementing the student identity verification, that runs up substantial costs for us, because we need to have people on our end looking at student IDs, providing the biometric service, and so on. And so this was, the signature track is something that we had to charge a modest fee for. But before launching the product, I actually told my entire product team that we had to implement financial aid, and I actually told my product team that if financial aid is not implemented, then I will hold back the launch of the product. And I think, to many of us, like $30, $40, $50 is the cost of a nice meal, but to many people, to many of the poorest kids in the US and internationally, $50 makes a course completely unaffordable. Like a poor kid born in Oakland, California, a poor kid born in Cleveland, a poor kid born in Africa. Many of these kids, not only do they not have $50, they probably don't even have a credit card. And to throw up a barrier preventing the neediest and the most vulnerable of our society from accessing these things, I think would just be a tragedy. So I think for those reasons, that's why I've been insisting from the get-go that all of these all the course content be free, so anyone can take the courses for free. And moreover, for the signature track, which does run up substantial costs on our end, if there's a poor kid that can't afford it but would really benefit from having, a Duke University certificate, Duke University course on their resume or to hang on their wall, if they can't afford it, we ask them to fill out a one-page financial aid application, and we would love to find ways to serve, frankly, the most neediest people in our society as well. Thank you. And to share with you the other things we're doing, somewhat organically, many schools like the University of Helsinki has started offering academic credit for our courses. And we saw around the country a lot of departments, professors, universities, all making their own independent attempts to evaluate these online courses and figure out what it means and set policy. And we thought it useful to help clean this up. So rather than having everyone spend a lot of time evaluating each course independently, we I contacted ACE, the American Council for Education, which is perhaps the most respected organization in the US for college credit recommendations. So as of, about a couple of weeks ago, ACE had evaluated 5 of our courses and made a positive credit recommendation for all 5, vocational credit for 1 and college credit for 4. And what this means is that students will be able to take our online courses and receive an ACE transcript that they can take to any of ACE's partner universities, about 2,000 universities in the United States, and potentially earn academic credit at any of these 2,000 universities that would be good towards a degree. Before a lot of universities started issuing academic credit for our courses, we wanted to put in place an even higher level of security, of academic integrity and security. I think the obvious solution would have been to send all the students to a standardized testing center. But we spoke with a lot of students and found that that was really not a popular idea. For many students that are working adults, going to a standardized testing center may mean a day of travel, then staying in a hotel, paying for babysitting, so a day of travel, and then taking the exam on the second day, and then another day of travel afterward to go home. And the cost of skipping time out from work, of the travel, the hotel cost, the babysitting cost just made this completely infeasible to many people, especially working adults and families. So what we did was we decided to implement a digital webcam proctoring solution. And the way that works is if a student wants to receive a course of an ACE credit recommendation, we ask them to take a final exam with a digital webcam proctoring. So a human proctor would watch you take the exam, and we show your ID, and the digital webcam proctoring, I've seen many demos. Obviously, I don't want to say cheating is impossible, but it's surprisingly secure. If you've been on a video telecom, like a Skype or Google Hangouts telecom before, you know that if the person you're speaking to is looking off to the side, it's pretty obvious what they're doing. So it's actually pretty difficult, I think, although not impossible, for students to cheat. And with that, hopefully we'll be able to offer some students academic credit as well. The reason this excites me is because I guess out in California, and I think to some extent, although I think possibly less in Ohio as well, I'm seeing a huge capacity problem. Not far from, I guess, maybe a couple of personal stories. I don't usually tell this, but a few months ago, I was at a party with a group of friends, and after the party ended, one of my friends is a working adult who does not have a college degree. One of my friends was, it was just she and me sitting on the floor. She started taking $10 and $20 bills out of her wallet and putting them on the floor. And she was counting whether or not she had $700 to pay her community college tuition. And some of you might be surprised that I have friends, in a range of economic circumstances, but this is not Africa, this is not India, this is California, and I guess this is one of my friends, and seeing my friend count $10 and $20 bills is one of the images that I think will sear itself on my eyeballs for a long time to come. So I think what we're seeing nationwide is that there are a lot of working adults that for whatever reason do not yet have a college degree. And I would love to find a way to bring them back into the education system. And I'm hoping that the convenience of an online class will allow many of these working adults to take the first step, take a few online classes, earn a bit of academic credit, and then come back into the education system to earn the degrees that they need to have a better life. And I think I hope that this will allow us to serve many more people than the education system is today. And then finally, our highest tier maybe for how our strategy for letting students earn academic credit is what we call the Coursera for Schools program. So the way that works is we can take content taught by any of Coursera's partners. I didn't make this slide just for this talk, but the Ohio State University Calculus 1 class is actually one of the most popular ones. For example, so I've been in discussions with a number of universities, community colleges, say, in California, that are interested in taking courses such as the Ohio State Calculus class. And the way this would work is they will send their students to watch the videos produced by one of our university partners. And what this means is that the local instructor at the community college no longer has to spend so much time grading homeworks because of our auto-grading technology. Those of you that are teachers, I'm sure, right, grading homeworks must be your favorite activity, right? And the teacher, instead of spending all the time grading and doing content preparation, the teacher can then spend most of their time doing the flipped classroom mode of instruction and doing the one-on-one mentoring that I think many of our students really need. And when the student completes the class, they can then come into the classroom to take an exam in, say, the local community college or whatnot, under the watchful eye of the instructor that has gotten to know them over the last 10 weeks. And it would then be, say, the local community college or whatnot that is the organization offering academic credit. I think that there's something, almost sacred about the professor-student relationship. I think many of you, I suspect most of us wound up in this room today because we had amazing professors when we went to college. And I hope that by providing our content to a range of universities to enable them to teach in this flipped classroom mode, that will be creating much more room for those very valuable professor-student interactions, which I think frankly benefits the weaker students the most, but also benefits the strong students significantly. And with these sorts of solutions, I believe that we'll be able to lower costs of education while raising quality and having enough surplus that I believe we'll be able to pay many of our current instructors better than we are currently as well. So I think, and most importantly, I think we can serve students better, which really is ultimately the most important thing. Just to finish up, over the last year, I've traveled to a lot of cities and spoken with a lot of people about education. And I've been surprised to find that even today, a lot of people still say that a great education should be reserved only for the elite. Even today, a lot of people still say that a great education should be reserved for the privileged. But I say that a great education is a fundamental human right. And with technology, we're working to bring it to everyone. Thank you. And I guess, again, this isn't something I've said to a lot of audiences, but given the number of teachers in this room, for about a year now, I've been talking about this idea of education as a human right. And perhaps like many of you, I would love to live in a world where students no longer have to choose between paying for tuition and paying for groceries. I'd love to live in a world where a poor kid born in Oakland, California, or a poor kid born in Cleveland, Ohio, or a poor kid born in Africa has nearly equality of opportunity as a kid born in the wealthy suburbs of DC. And if we are to make this vision a reality, if we are to give every child a nearly equal shot at succeeding, then I think it will be top educators, such as all of you in this room, that will have to lead the way. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.